The Triumph Hurdle this year, my opinion personally hasn't changed. I think Cerberus is a quality horse. He should have won at Leopardstown. I think Cerberus and Aspire Tower just went a bit too hard during that race and both just ran out of gas. Aspire Tower fell as a result and Cerberus just ended up running on the spot when looking like he would win easily. However, like from that, my mind just hasn't changed. I still think Cerberus for a Triumph Hurdle 20 to 1 is just a mad price. I really can't believe that price.
For me, I have backed Solo at 12 to 1, but he ran very well the other day and looked really good. But maybe he's overrated a little bit, perhaps. I watched a couple of Goshen's races this morning, and he's an absolute nutter and jumps all over the place, but still wins. And won very comfortably, even though it ran all over the track. I quite like A Wave of the Sea, who was the horse that beat Cerberus when Cerberus stopped the other day. And I just think if things go a bit mad at the front, he might be one that can sit back and pick up the pieces coming up the hill at the end there, because I think he'll stay all day. So for me, I think Wave of the Sea is my pick.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what happened. What Leopardstown, A Wave of the Sea just took on after Cerberus and Aspire Tower just went so hard at each other. A Wave of the Sea was just there to just pass them by at the end.
I think that's what's going to happen in this race. I think there's so much pace in this race, and they're just going to go hell for leather. I think something from off the pace is probably going to come and win, and I'm hopeful it's going to be A Wave for the Sea.
Yeah, I like A Wave of the Sea as well on this. It was the same as you, Martin, on the Dublin Racing Festival podcast. I thought he had a big chance each way. As you say, came from off the pace. I don't know. Cerberus just kind of seemed to idle and near enough stop the last day. But I like him, and I'll definitely be backing him. A Wave of the Sea.
What do you think happened there, Ryan? What happened with Cerberus, do you think? Hit the front too early?
Yeah, I just think Aspire Tower and Cerberus just went too far, too fast, too quickly. Like they just ran out of gas at the end, and see, it was just a battle between the two of them. No one else was really expecting anything really to do anything, because they both had bet A Wave of the Sea very, very comfortably beforehand. So it was a bit of a shock to me anyway that A Wave of the Sea came by and passed them both.
Do you think if Aspire Tower had not fallen, Cerberus would have won?
No. I still think Cerberus would have ran out of gas, but I don't think Aspire Tower would have won either.
Oh no, I don't think Aspire. I just wondered if Cerberus would have just kept going with something to run with, rather than being out on his own and thinking job's done. I'll stop now.
Maybe, yeah, but Wave of the Sea just was impressive. He just picked up the pace so quickly, and just passing by the two of them just ran out of gas. Aspire Tower fell as a result, and Cerberus just ran on the spot.
This is such an interesting race for like so many reasons, but the tactics behind this are going to be so crucial. Like we have absolutely two nutters at the top of this market in All Mankind and Goshen. Like God knows what is going to happen there. I think if I was to guess, I don't think Goshen wants to go with All Mankind, and I think Goshen can maybe settle a bit better with All Mankind to aim at. Whereas All Mankind, the way he tears off in front, although he's been a bit more measured in recent starts, he's just a freak. Like, I think Michael Bell, when he trained him, said he wasn't far off Derby standards as a 2-year-old, but he was effectively kicked out of Newmarket because he just was near enough uncontrollable. Like he had so much talent, but they just couldn't put a lid on him. And to be fair to the Skeltons, they've done a hell of a job on him. Obviously, he won on his debut in ridiculous fashion, but he crawled up the finish there because he just sped off so strongly. I think then in the Grade 2 trial at Cheltenham, like on the old course, he put in a more measured performance, still very strong from the front. But that race has worked out pretty well. You had Botox Has in second. You had Langadan back in third. Oh no, Botox Has beat Langadan next time out. So that was a useful performance, and Repetito was back in third. And then All Mankind then beat Cerberus, I think, in the Grade 1 Coral finale at Chepstow, where he again set a really, really strong pace. And Cerberus looked like he might be reeling him in on the turn for home. But then he got to within about 4 lengths, and All Mankind kicked away again. And to me, that was the most impressive thing about it. Like, he showed that he isn't just a constant front runner who doesn't find at the finish. I do think he's learning to save a bit at the end. And I think I was listening to a preview with Tom Messenger, the assistant trainer, and he said he's probably the most exciting horse they've ever had. The issue, of course, is going to be the tactics. And if Goshen takes him on, it could turn into a real messy race, which sets it up perfectly for the likes of Solo or A Wave of the Sea. I do really, really like All Mankind. For all that he's absolutely nuts, I think he could be a bit of a freak and something a bit special.
And what do you make about Solo being favourite? I just think that's madness. I don't think he's justified favourite compared to the rest of them. If you look at some of the other horses at bigger prices, they probably shouldn't be bigger prices. Solo should be around the same as them. Definitely not favourite for me, anyway.
I just think he put in the most complete performance we've seen from a juvenile, I'd say, this season. I think if you look at the ones that have really appealed from like a visual perspective so far this season, it's been All Mankind, Goshen and Inspired Tower, the way they've destroyed fields from the front. Whereas I think with Solo, you saw a more settled horse. Like, he pinged every hurdle and then put the race to bed really stylishly, for all that he probably didn't beat much on the day. I can understand the reaction. I think he's gone relatively short now, but I think this race might just unfold perfectly for him. I think in time he'll stay further than 2 miles, no problem. And his quite level temperament, it seems, and because he's so simple, I think he could just get towed perfectly into this race. I do think he's a really, really nice horse.
Yeah, I'm with you on All Mankind, but just to pick up on what you said regarding Solo, I think a lot of it is quite a lot of hype. I think the fact he's an entire is kind of interesting. I wouldn't read too much into it, because if they gelded him, he wouldn't be able to run this season, and they thought, well, we'd rather run in this season than not. So I wouldn't a lot of people have focused in on that, but I don't think it's down to that at all. But Nichols speaks with him with real sort of confidence. The most interesting line to come out of sort of his day was, he talked about Sir Psycho and saying he thought he was one of their best chances of the week in the Triumph Hurdle. But apparently he's not in the same mould as Solo even, which was really, really interesting. And it just says about how much connections like him. It was, as you say, a complete performance. The way he just did everything really, really right. And it was a wide margin as well, which always gets people excited. And on that, I suppose you can justify being favourite. But I like what All Mankind did at Chepstow more than anything, because Chepstow on Welsh National Day is really, really difficult ground. I think it's possibly the worst wherever you go. And to make all and then pick up again is really quite special. And the form stacks up. I mean, you can't knock the form. I mean, the finale juvenile hurdle is pretty poor in previous years. But the way he did it that day was a sign of a horse that could be very, very good. And he looks like he's got all the talent. In terms of pace, it's going to be an interesting race. But I think he'll be okay. You know, I think even if he does have to sort of go from the front and leave Goshen behind, I think that'll be okay, because I think he's just a sort of natural talented horse, and I don't think there's anything wrong with putting him in front and saying, right, who's good enough to get me, because so far nothing has been, and he certainly, in my book, he deserves to be favourite on what he did at Chepstow that day. But Solo's an exciting horse, and it'll be interesting to see whether he can live up to his hype.
The Randox Health County Handicap Hurdle, I like Araman a lot. He's a favourite of mine. Unfortunately, his season has got caught up amongst the Supreme Racing issue, but he's back in the track now, and he hasn't had the best years, but he's just one of them horses that could turn up at any stage. The horses he's finished behind this year are all top class: Super Sunday, Honeysuckle, Dover Star, Petit Mouchoir. I think he has a good chance of 12-1. But Kel Destan, I believe, runs in this, and he is one of my all-time favourite horses. I thought he was very unlucky the last time out at Fontwell. He came second and was bet by William Henry, who just came out of the clouds and bet Kel Destan and Thomas Sorby. But on Kel Destan's day, there's nothing that can beat him.
For me, there's still, I don't know, 100 horses still left in this race. So it's very, very hard to pick anything. Obviously, like yourself, Ryan, big Caldestan fan. So would look quite closely at that one. If Moon over Germany turned up, I'd probably be interested in that, and perhaps Wild Max as well. But for me at the moment, there's too many horses in this race to be able to make a judgment.
Yeah, it's a minefield of a handicap, but to be fair, I do like Aramon. I think I put him up a few days back when the weights came up at 16-1. I think he's now generally 10-1. So I think you can see he's a really, really classy type. I think he was 8-1 for last year's Supreme, and he ran a far better race than the finishing position of 6th suggested, especially as it was on unsuitably soft ground. I think it's key to him for the ground to be at least good to soft, if not on the good side of it. He just really seems to relish firm conditions. So I think if you go back and watch his run in the Irish Championship last time, like that was a quite an eye-catching run once you look at it. Like he was out the back throughout, and even approaching 2 out as the others were starting to try to be asked for their effort and pull away, he still hadn't yet been asked any questions, and he kind of just snuck into the race and stayed on past beaten horses into 5th, and he was only beaten 8.5 lengths in the end. So for him to get in here off like 149, I think it is, just £1 higher than his Irish mark, I think that's a very, very fair mark for him. And Willie Mullins' record in this race is superb. I think in the last 10 years, he's had 4 winners. And I think he's had another 7 finishing the front 4 from just 27 runners. So his record in this race is superb. I think Aramon is a class horse. And if he lines up here and the ground is on the good side, I think he's got a really, really good chance.
I like West Cork of Dan Skelton's in this race. Dan Skelton has won the last 2 runnings of it. And I think at 25-1, West Cork is definitely worth each way in this. If he goes here or gets in and is off a 10 stone 9, really nice weight on it. So yeah, I'd take him in this one.
Yeah, I'm going to be a bit boring as well and go for the Aramon camp for all the same reasons. Pretty much you've all just said. I just feel that this is a sort of traditional race where you want a horse that's just sort of being crept along slowly and just aimed at a sort of big handicap. And I've got a feeling Connections might have just had this sort of race in mind after all the sort of problems that they had. I just sort of look at his runs and I thought he was putting those sort of big Grade 1 races, and he was never really going to win them, but he still ran okay. His mark stayed the same all the way through, and he's going here as potentially a really graded horse in a pretty wide open handicap. I mean, I like what he did at Cheltenham last year. I thought it was a decent run in a Supreme, which was muddling, and there's all sort of questions you can ask about it. And like I say, I mean, what he did as well at Aintree last year, that was a good run, and he was sent off for quite a short price. He well backed for that race as well. There's a lot of pointers that this horse is a lot better than a rating of 149, and it could be that this is the chance that we see it. I mean, the other 2 I would sort of mention is, I know I've mentioned the Titels quite a lot. Eldorado Allen is a horse that is really hard to judge. If you go back to his first start at Sandown after a long break, he was really narrowly beaten, carrying a heavy weight. In what looked a good race, and I mean, I quite like looking at horses that run well at Sandown and go to Cheltenham, but the last day he was just ran no sort of race, and on that form you give him no chance. Hard to judge, but he could be better than his mark is at the moment. And the other one I quite liked was that's gone off my mind a sec. Sorry, I've completely forgotten. I couldn't have liked him that much, I suppose.
To be fair, in a field of 100,
Sir
it's quite
Valentine.
hard to remember one. It's hard to narrow them down.
It was, yes. Sir Valentine, I'm not sure he's going to get in, but I saw this horse win at Newbury in November. He went straight into my book. I've been keeping an eye on him all the way. He won a novice hurdle then. He's going to win a big handicap. I'm not sure when, I'm not sure where, but if I don't mention him and he wins it, I'll be kicking myself. So Sir Valentine, he's going to win a race one day, but he probably won't get in.
I'm looking at Ramses de Tay. Beat Champagne Well, one of our horses that we're following this season at Doncaster, and then won again in February. He's got a strange profile for perhaps a horse in this race, given he came second in the Welsh Grand National and was pulled up at Aintree in the Grand National. But he is a bit of a brute of a horse. I think experience helps racing generally, and I think at the price 12-1, I think the Albert Bartlett is a bit of a bumpy race, and I think he'll go well given he's running big fields and knows how to get in front. So yeah, Ramsey's to take for me.
I like Harry Senior. He won the Ballymore Novice Hurdle at Cheltenham in January. Won it comfortably too. Robbie Power will ride it here, and he'll give it a great ride, I'd imagine. And he'll be very close here. James, you were at the Tizards Yard. Was there anything said about Harry Senior?
The interesting thing is they weren't definitely saying Robbie Power was going to be on board. He apparently was quite keen on Lieutenant Rock over last day. I think it's just sort of in an iron. I think they'll go for Harry Senior personally. Yeah, he looked good. His form has always been pretty rock solid. I mean, he over 2 miles he sort of bumped into Sporting John, and he's a horse I've been kind of keeping an eye on for quite a while. But they like him a lot. They've always thought a lot of him, and I think the thing that they particularly kind of wanted to stress was that what he did at Cheltenham last day is it could have been a lot better. Just the waiver race didn't really go in favour of him. They like him a lot, and he's got the right credentials to be a good staying hurdler, isn't he? Because they know what they're doing, and they won this race not too long ago with Kilbrickinstorm.
There's a horse that's gone off the radar quite a lot, Kilbrickinstorm. He is an entry, I think, somewhere.
He's in the Thames.
Yeah.
I think he'll be gambled on the day. It would not surprise me to see him well back to the day. As you said, to be fair, I'm a big fan of Harry Senior as well, especially because I actually quite like Protectorate for the Coral Cup earlier in the week, and obviously they tie in. But the one at the moment I think is quite a big price is Redford Road at 25-1. Now, he beat Champagne well in the Bristol Novice Hurdle, which is an Albert Bartlett trial at Cheltenham. Now, that race has a really good record of producing Albert Bartlett winners. So 12 have gone on from that race, the winners to the Albert Bartlett since the year 2000, has resulted in 4 wins and 3 placed, which is a really, really eye-catching record. And the most recent ones to do the double, as you know what I mean, Harry in 2016 and Kilbrickinstorm in 2018. And Redford Road actually has quite a similar profile to Kilbrickinstorm in the fact that they were both then beaten on their next start. So Redford Road then ran again at Cheltenham on New Year's Day in a listed race and was beaten about 8 lengths by Protectorate. Now, I think you can forgive him that run, mainly because it was his 5th run in just 100 days. So I think he was probably a bit over the top by then. And he's been freshened up since that effort by Nigel Twiston-Davies. And we know that fitness won't really be a concern when he's coming from that stable. And when you're dealing with a race like the Albert Bartlett that throws up surprise winners all the time at a big price, I mean, I think in the last 10 years, you've had a 50-1 winner, 3 33-1 winners, and loads of others at double prices. I think sometimes it can pay to look at those at a bigger price. And if you go through Redford Road's form and how he looks like a real strong stayer with plenty of experience, I think he's got a live chance at 25-1.
I like latest expedition in this for the Paul Nolan team. I think he's been really good this season, and I think it would be great for a small kind of team like the Nolans, and it would be really good to see Brian Cooper actually get a winner on the big stage at Cheltenham again. And I think I've seen the best price there at about 6s. I like him in this race. I think he won well at the Dublin Racing Festival, and he will definitely give himself another good chance come Friday.
And horse.
I was just going to mention, you mentioned kind of horses at a big price. I agree with you on that. I think it is worth looking a bit outside because the Albert Bartlett's a funny sort of test. And I think for a lot of horses, it's almost sort of something brand new to what they sort of raced against before. It's just such a funny little race in the sense of that a lot of horses come into it having won kind of 6 or 7 runner novice hurdles somewhere on a small track, and then it's just the hustle and bustle of it, and it is just such a test on that sort of ground after on the fourth day of the festival. The one I quite like, and I hope Henry is going to give it a positive mention, and it just doesn't sound like I'm talking rubbish, is Cobbler's Bay, who was second behind latest exhibition last time at the Dublin Racing Festival. I was impressed by his run. He was second, sort of looked fairly beaten, to be fair. He looked second best, I think that was fair to say. But I just got a feeling that over a bit of a longer trip, that might just kind of see him in a bit better light. And I also sort of think that the way the race will run, and I think he's quite a big kind of galloping horse, and so something like Cheltenham and a 3 miles round Cheltenham would suit him quite well. And at 20-1, I think he's got a live each way chance.
Henry knows how to win the Albert Bartlett, especially with.
Indeed, yeah.
I mean, last year's performance was freakish. Yeah, I think that's a very fair shout. With that graded form in the book, he hasn't got too much to find with latest exhibition. Yeah, 20-1 is very big price, I think.
The horse you mentioned earlier, Decor Irlande, has an entry here at 66-1. Is it confirmed that he's going to the Ballymore, or is he going to the Albert Bartlett?
I don't think they're 100% mind made up just yet. The Ballymore, the trip would probably suit him a wee bit better. And I just seen there on Twitter, not that long ago, but half an hour ago or so, where Gordon Elliott says at that Betfair preview night that he's at tonight that Envoy Allen possibly is favouring towards the Supreme now, so that might throw a spanner amongst the works there and the Ballymore.
That changes everything, doesn't it?
I'll actually just get what he said there. Where was it here? It was Gordon Elliott has tonight said that he is more likely to run in the Supreme Novices Hurdle due to the forecast testing ground.
That's going to change that Supreme Hurdle completely, in my opinion.
It's threw a massive spanner into the works.
Definitely.
A lot of the horses probably tried to avoid
Envoy Allen.
And now they're going to run into him.
That could be interesting for Asterion for Lunge. Now, he could run in a different race. He has entries into 2 or 3 different races.
Yeah, I was going to say he still has a couple of entries there, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they can divide it up. If Shishkin stays in the Supreme, then you can. The other Willie Mullins horse in the Donnelly colours? You could potentially go up for the Albert Bartlett. Is it the big getaway, or the other one? I can't remember. There's 2 bigs in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he could potentially go up in trip because he looks a stayer anyway. So the Donnellys could actually split their hand even more. That's a massive change. You could see all sorts going on there. I think you need to now just wait. I guess the glory of no run and no bet is you can take the odd chance here, but I think now you just need to wait for those markets to calm down. It's going to be a bit crazy at the moment, I can imagine.
I'm probably definitely going to have a bet either later on tonight or tomorrow on Decor Irlandes in both of them races now, just because of the fact that he could possibly head to the Supreme, or Envoy Allen. So non-runner, no bet. You're getting 40, 50 to 1 about him. Good value.
Right, so big ones next. We'll move on to the Gold Cup now. Delta Work for me is going to win this Gold Cup. He's been so good this season. He's hardly put a single foot wrong, and I doubt he'll do any different here. 6-1 is quite big for him. I don't know why Santini is favourite for this. I would personally be having Delta Work as the favourite for this.
I think Santini's the favourite because he would prefer the softer ground, I think. Whereas it now looks like maybe it's going to be a little bit softer than good come Friday. I'm a Delta Work fan. I think Delta Work will win. However, I also think Albin Photo's done nothing wrong as a champion. I just think trying to win the Gold Cup 2 years running is notoriously difficult, as we've seen over the years. I still like Lost in Translation as well, although I had a very poor race in Kempton. I just think the break has probably done him some good. Puppy Power was saying the other day that he's come on for the rest, and maybe we can hear some more about what happened on Monday down at the Tizard Yard. So for me, it's dealt to work and lost in translation.
Yeah, I'm going to make a small claim for Jet here. He, like we said in the Dublin Racing Festival podcast, would completely outrun the 100-1 odds that he had at the time. And he wasn't very far off Dealt Work, Camboy, and Percent Bercy come the end. And I think he won't be too far off here in the Cheltenham Gold Cup.
Did they say that they're looking at the Grand National for him as like a long-term target? I can't remember.
Yeah, he is entered into that.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Like for me, like I struggle to see past Album Photo here. I have honestly no idea how Santini is the favourite or even near Album Photo in the market. Like for me, like I get the point about reigning champions in the Gold Cup have historically a poor record, but when you look at it in a bit more detail, it's not actually that bad when you look at the ones since Best Mate. So only 8 since 2005 have actually tried to defend their crown, and 3 didn't complete, and only one of the 5 to complete finished outside the front 4. So the others were 2 seconds, a third, and a fourth. So they don't perform that badly historically. And I think you'd have to take a lot of positives from the fact that Willie Mullins has mirrored last year's light preparation. It's the same kind of way that Henrietta Knight prolonged Best Mate's longevity by giving him a very light campaign before the Gold Cup. And he looked superb on his reappearance, like as Issa with no problem at all. I think he's got an absolutely outstanding chance of winning back-to-back Gold Cups. I think how he's tied with Santini in the market, I'm not sure. Like for me, he's still relatively lightly raced. He's only had 15 starts under rules, just 10 over fences. And as an 8-year-old, I still think he's got plenty of miles in the tank. So for me, I think he should be clear favourite by a mile.
I think it's right. And I think Mullins, having never won it, has found the formula to win it. And like the old buses, he's going to get more than one in a row.
Yeah, definitely.
Again, I don't see why Santini is anywhere near favouritism for this race, personally. But I still do like Dealt Work. I think Dealt Work's had a good season. I think he had a bad run. He had a bad first run, but you can forgive him that one. And since then, he's done nothing wrong.
The thing with Album Photo is he's quite quick. You never really know what he's going to do. If you look back through his ranks, like he's ran out and he's took a few horses with him down through the times. Like I remember, I think it was Punchestown when he ran out. He looked like he was coming on, and I think he took out Phineas Oscar, maybe I think it was, with him. And the two of them looked like they were dead certs that they were going to battle it up through the finish, and the two of them just ran out. And that's something that always sticks out in my mind when I hear Album Photo. But
I think that a case of Paul Townend thinking he had to go around the obstacle. I think didn't he think he saw like someone wave him round? So was that Album Photo's fault?
Jockey thing, not a horse thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't hold that against Album Photo. I mean he's very, very classy. Like I don't think there's much ungenuine about him. I mean he does take the odd chance at offence. Like he didn't have a cleanest of round last year's, like in the Gold Cup. Like he did make the odd mistake, but for him to have made those mistakes and still win as convincingly as he did, I think he's top class.
I actually liked last year's favourite. I think it was Presenting Percy. I just think he could bounce back this year. But I was tuning on the preview there where I heard that Pat Kelly is the type of man who would train him for the year and hold him for one good run. You know, his runs this year have been kind of okay, where he was fifth at the start and then he finished a good third, shall we say, the last time, behind Delta Work and I just think that if anything's going to spring a surprise, I think it could be him. David Russell sat patiently and strike.
And what about Clan Zobo, 2-time King George winner? Can't write him out. He doesn't really do the business at Cheltenham like he's capable of doing, but definitely not ruling him out here.
I really wanted to fancy Clandezovo because I thought he might be one that's just being ignored by the market by his performance last year. But the more I look at it, I've seen some say, especially Paul Nicholls was saying that they made too much use of him last season, but I don't really buy that looking back at the race. Like, I think about the 7 out, 6 out mark, he was a length ahead of Album Photo. So I don't think it was a case of he was up there with the pace too early. I can't really see that. I think you're banking a lot on either him being a stronger horse from last season, which is possible, or the lighter preparation bringing out that much improvement on him and able to finish up the hill. I just don't see it personally. I think he's going to be like Silvignac Conti. Like, he's going to be imperious in the King George and round flatter tracks, but I think he's just going to be one that always falls a bit short in a Gold Cup.
Yeah, I don't think Cheltenham suits him at all. What about Lost in Translation? Will he bounce back, or will he put on a similar performance to the King George?
I'm really, the Gold Cup this year is something I've sort of looked through, and I sort of a huge doubt about so many of them. It's a fascinating race. The only horse that for me that you just look at and go, there isn't a doubt in is Delta Work. But funny enough, I don't actually fancy Delta Work because I just feel that he might have had 2 big targets gone already, and I just want a horse that's going a bit fresher into the Gold Cup. I mean, I hear what you say about Album Photo. I really questioned last year's Gold Cup form, actually. I feel that Native River sort of didn't run his race. Clandezobo didn't run well, and Presenting Percy clearly didn't. And I think, was he a really classy winner, or did he win a race which didn't live up to the expectation of a previous Gold Cup? Hard to judge. We'll find out next Friday. The horse for me is Lost in Translation. I mean, I've always thought he'd be a really nice horse. I'd always thought he should run over 3 miles. I was kind of screaming at the TV when he was entered up in the, or declared for the JLT, because I've always thought he would be much better over 3 miles, and entry, that was right. I thought what he did at Haydock was probably the best performance from a 3-mile chase this year. In my opinion, I thought he just moved the race into the race well. He put it to bed well, but also I just thought there's so much more left into the tank for later in the season. Kempson was a disaster from start to finish. You know, his wind had a problem, but he didn't jump well. Nothing went right. It was a complete off day. And coming back to win a Gold Cup off an off day is difficult, but they're sure he's back to his best. I mean, he's happy. He seems well. He seems the sort of horse to me that would absolutely relish a race like the Gold Cup, a bit further than 3 miles, real stamina test. You know, he probably won't want too much rain, and if it dries out, it's going to go right in his favour. But for me, I've banged his drum for about a year now, so let's hope that it starts listening. And you're right again about Santini. I can't work out how on earth he is at the top of the market, to be honest with you. His form is okay. He won well the last day, but without sort of blowing the world away. It looks a fascinating Gold Cup, this one, I have to say. But yeah, for me, Lost in Translation. But I think Delta Work personally deserves to be favourite in the betting at the moment.
I think it's interesting that Review Walsh, I don't think he's ever rated Album Photo. Like, he would have got the chance to ride Album Photo in the Cheltenham Gold Cup, and then again he got the pick of them in the Irish Gold Cup, and he still went for Camboy, and Camboy ultimately won that. So I think that's a bit interesting that Review Walsh, you know, he had the pick of whether to ride Album Photo or not, but he still picked Camboy and Bells Hill in the Cheltenham Gold Cup last year.
Do you think if he was coming back this year, I mean, he'd have to ride Album Photo? Surely.
Yeah, well, like, who else would he ride?
Camboy. Camboy's in the race. To be honest, like, the more I look at this race, so the front 4 in terms of pacemaking from last year aren't running this year. So it kind of leaves a bit of a gap for who's going to lead. And I think Camboy should be the one to go forward, because we've seen his best performances have come when he's in a rhythm, going well from the front, something he really hasn't got so far this season. I mean, his performance at Aintree and then at Punchestown when he beat Albin Photo, like they were good efforts from the front. I think that's when he's seen to best effect. I think if this race pans out, I think it might. Ken Boy can go well from the front here. If he can tidy up his jumping, obviously it was really poor the last time he was behind Delta Work. He was only a length and a half behind him at the finish, and he missed so many fences that day. If he can get in a better rhythm out in front, we've seen he's got the class to win these top staying chases. He hasn't done it at Cheltenham yet, but if he gets his way out in front, I think he could go better than a lot of people are giving him hope for.
And Henry Bromhead's 2 horses, when I was talking to him, he seemed quite bullish about both of them, to be honest. But he pointed out Monolith in particular, and he does think that Monolith has a brilliant chance here. And you will hear that now in a couple of minutes. Monolith is definitely worth an each way shot for this.
Yeah, he's currently around 25-1.
Yeah, which is quite a big price for him, realistically, isn't it? So we'll talk about the Martin Pipe. And Martin, you're the reason this is in here. We'll let you belt away with this one.
Oh, again, another big handicap to end the festival. Again, there's at this stage quite a few runners still listed here. Far too many to sort of go through. One to pick out for me was, where's he gone? Flash the Steel. He's run well this season. He's beat Champagne Court at Chepstow in October. I think we heard on ITV recently Dan Skelton talking up this horse, saying it had been trained for this particular race, and of course the price collapsed following that announcement on that day. I think he was 40-1 at the time. He's now a 12-1 shot. Apart from that one, I don't know where else to look, given the number of runners that are still in this, and obviously the majority of them aren't actually going to race in this at all.
This is just a race for plots, isn't it, really? Like, it just tends to be that way. I mean, we had it last year with Dallas to Picton and Early Doors fighting out the finish at the end. I think the one at the moment that's doing the rounds for all the preview evenings is Front View. I think rumoured to be jocked up with John Joe O'Neill Jr., who still somehow gets in these conditionals races for the last season. Obviously won it last year and represents last year's exact winning connections of JP, Joseph O'Brien, and John Joe Jr. His last run was so eye-catching in that Grade 3. He was out back through most of it, made really nice headway, and then was a bit hampered and stayed on towards the finish to grab second. I think he's the best horse probably in this race when he lines up. Irish novices have a superb record in this race in recent years. I mean, the price is gone now. He's been smashed into like 6-1, 5-1 because of all the mentions for him on the preview evening circuit. But I think he's going to be really tough to beat in this.
Yeah, I think it's the case that the Irish do so well in this race. I think the Irish conditional jockeys are probably better, and are linked to these top stables, and then they come over and tend to win this race every year.
I've just wrote Shan Blue in my notes. He came second behind Shishkin last time out, I think. And I remember him winning in December by about 20 lengths or 30 lengths at Suddle, I think it was. But that stood out for me, and whether he'll go to this race or not remains to be seen. I think he's around 33-1, 25-1, something like that for this, so he's quite a big price.
I actually fancy another one of Joseph's in it. Fakir. I like the way he's won the last couple of times, and hopefully he'll have young up and coming jockey Oakley Brown on him. He's won on him twice on his last 3 starts, and he unseated in between. He's 25-1, best price. So I think a combination of the value and the price, but the jockey and the horse have had a wee combination for the last couple of times out. So I would say if they go on this race or they get under it, that they might have a chance.
Yeah, Oakley Brown's a top jockey, isn't he? He has a 19% strike rate in Ireland in the last 5 seasons, which is incredible for an upcoming jockey. And he definitely has a huge future ahead of him. And if he's riding them horses for Joseph, he's definitely going to pick up a lot of winners along the way.
I'm nearly sure he rode a bumper winner for Joseph the other day as well. So his value for, I think he's still a £7 claimer or £5 claimer in Ireland. He's better value than that, for sure.
I've got one that's a bit on left field, actually. A horse that I think might have been we've mentioned how the Irish sort of target this race and such, but I think there might be a British runner here who's been looking at this race called Espoir de Rome, trained by Kim Bailey. Only really had 4 starts over hurdles, but it's kind of done well under the radar. He beat a horse called West Cork at Warwick in November, and that looks pretty good form. He won that quite convincingly. And the last day at Wincanton, he won a conditional jockeys race. Really well actually. He stayed on really well. He was well back that day. He's gone up £10 for that, but that was over sort of 2 hurdles. But it's kind of done well under the radar. He beat a horse called West Cork at Warwick in November, and that looks pretty good form. He won that quite convincingly. And the last day at Wincanton, he won a conditional jockeys race. Really well actually. He stayed on really well. He was well back that day. He's gone up £10 for that, but that was over sort of 2 mile 4. And you think that sort of this has always been the kind of race in mind for him. He looks like he's a horse on the improve, and to be honest with you, at 25-1, considering how well he won last time, he looks a bit overpriced. So definitely a bit of each way value there.
He looked a really nice horse. Yeah, he looked a really good prospect. Yeah, I'm surprised he's that big, to be honest. That's a good spot.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact they put him into he had Ned Curtis, I think it was, on him that day. So, yeah, they've probably had this race in mind. But, yeah, he did win well that day, I have to say. And I can't believe he's that big, to be honest, because he could be a lot better than 142.
I think the horse he beat that day has just won today as well. I think Earthmore came out and won another race today. So, yeah, it's a nice little form boost as well.
And that wraps up the previews. We have a few questions here from some of our Twitter followers. At Swan673 asks, what horse is the worst value fave and which is the best in the current markets with just over a week to go? There's less than a week to go now, but
the worst price favourite for me would be Santini in the Gold Cup.
Yeah, I think that's a fair shout. I think another one for me is Manella Rocco, Fox Hunters. Absolutely no chance. I think he's maybe co-favourite. Derek O'Connor's getting off him. Beat Hazel Hill last time out, but Hazel Hill strained a muscle. And then before that, beat Bob & Co. Decided he wasn't actually a racehorse on that day. This isn't a race for horses that previously were really classy. This is a race for proven pointers generally, so can't have him at all at a short price. I
would go Shishkin, actually. I mean, I don't know what sort of price he'll be after the revelations this evening, but he has got to the top of the market over proven Grade 1 performance on pure hype, really, I think, personally. I don't think the value represents how good he is and the form of what he's done yet, although it could be boosted on Saturday in the Imperial Cup. But no, he shouldn't be that priced, personally. The Irish horses have achieved a lot more than he has. It'd be daft to put him as favourite, personally, I think.
I'm going to say Tiger Rule's the worst value favourite here at even money. I just can't see him winning here. He's not. I don't think he's targeting this race at all, and I don't think he'll run any sort of race. I think Easy Fan will just cruise through and win this. And what about the best value in the market, Sled?
Best value. Ooh.
That's a really tough one. It's a really tough one. Off the top of my head, maybe Itchy Feet, I guess. It depends on how that race cuts up, though. But I mean, he's proven Grade 1 performer. No, goes around Cheltenham. I think he's still at 7-2, 4-1. I think that's a very fair price. Again, especially if the likes of Allaho don't turn up here. I think that's a good price.
Yeah, I agree with you on Itchy Feet. I think that is a bold price. I mean, we've discussed his jumping earlier on, but I'm going to go back to Champ again. I think, considering the class he is and the potential he has as well, I think he's a really good price. And I'm in the firm believer. I know it's probably a wacky thing to say, I suppose, but I think if he'd have jumped the last, he'd be 6-4 sort of price. It's just that big F next to his name that he's that price personally. But I think he should be much shorter personally. But that's just me.
I think Annie Mac is the value here for an each way bet personally. 33-1 in that March Novice Chase. She's just been incredible all season, and I just think she'll run a huge race here at Cheltenham. Another value one would have to be Davor Star, 12-1. I think he's going to be very close to that champion hurdle. It's not a great champion hurdle, and he's come up against and finished very, very closely behind some of the best horses there is over hurdles at the minute.
And one more price on a race we didn't discuss in the Ultima Handicap, Sapage at 16-1. I think if he gets out and gets a lead and does what he did at Cheltenham last time around, I think he'll be very close to winning as well. 16-1.
And
Is that the Ultima? Is that the Ultima he's going for?
Yeah.
I thought, isn't he in the plate?
He's probably being both still, isn't he?
Yeah, it might be a last minute one. Yeah, he's in the Ultima, the Ryanair, and the plate. So yeah, there could be any really.
And we have one final question. How long would you have to spend in the Guinness Village before you would even think about backing Solo at 6-1?
Well, it's now 3-1.
Yeah,
I'd snap your arm off for 6-1. I don't need any Guinness for that. I'd take that right now. All over that.
Well, I'm on at 12-1, so.
That's a great price, I think.
If the gentleman is buying the Guinness, I'll get him at 4-6. I think is my answer to that. If he's buying the Guinness is in, but other than that, yeah, a long time. It's a rubbish price.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there, James. I'd have to have a lot of drinks with me.
It's a nice place to go, though, Guinness Village.
And we're just going to finish it off here with me, Martin, and Dean. We're doing charity bets to raise money for cancer trials. And Martin, what's your charity bet?
I will just find it for you now. My charity bet is going to be A Plus Tard in the Ryanair.
Mine is going to be Harry Senior in the Albert Bartlett at 10-1. That wraps up our Cheltenham preview podcast here, and we hope you enjoyed listening to it, and hopefully we pick out some winners for you. And I'd like to give a huge thanks to James Stevens and Dan Overall for joining us here today.
No worries at all, mate. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Very enjoyable night, and like I say, best of luck to you all for the festival, and make sure you enjoy it. We've waited long enough for it.
Absolutely.
It's been a pleasure to have you both, and it's a goodbye from all of us at Racing Records, and we wish you a very good Cheltenham.
Good luck, guys.